Welcome to the Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose, and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of the Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to the Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life.
It's so important for us to realize that we're not here to do it alone. We have agreements, soul agreements, if you will. We attract people in our lives to help us through our creations and co-creations grow, expand, learn about gifts that we're meant to bring to the world and to develop those gifts. We attract people in our lives to help us see our talents. We attract people in our lives to be partners or to help us when we're feeling the lowest or to walk with us when we're feeling our highest. We are truly community animals. We were meant to be in community. And community is so important in every aspect of our lives. The question is, what community do you hang with? What community do you run with? Do you run with, hang with? Have you developed a community of like-minded, like-hearted people who support you in who you are, what you're here to do, to experience your life in a way that brings you into the highest vibrations of joy, gratitude, appreciation? Or do you allow yourself to be in a community that's non-supportive, a community that isn't like-minded, isn't like-hearted? Do you allow yourself to be in a community of people who want to pull on your energy and not be in a giving, receiving relationship with you? Community is so important. So surround yourself with a community that helps you be all that you can be, that helps you live your reason for being, to make the difference that you're meant to make. I'm with Sandra Yancey today. Sandra is the founder and CEO of EWomen Network, the premier success system for women entrepreneurs. By the way, men join too. With over 500,000 women connected through 118 chapters spread across the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK, her company has been helping women for 20 years launch, grow, and scale their businesses. Sandra is the winner of countless awards and is featured in Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneur's Soul, is the producer of the Glow Project movie, heralded as one of the most inspiring movies ever created for women by the Orlando Film Festival, and CNN named her an American hero. Sandra Yancey, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
I'd love to do that with you, Vince. Yes.
I am so excited to have you here, and I want to share with the audiences that a little bit of physical problems for each of us have kind of kept us apart for a couple of weeks here, but now we're both healthy, ready to go, and I know you've got so much to share, and I want people to know about you and know what you bring to this world when it comes to community, especially. Before we get started in talking about community, Sandra, could you share a little bit more about EWomen Network and why you started it?
I started it, Vince, because I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I thought that with this great big city here, I didn't have to live on the road. I previously came from Dayton, Ohio, a small kind of farm town, and all of my clients I needed to get on a plane for, and so when I moved to Dallas, I thought, oh my gosh, Frito-Lay and J.C. Penney's and Texas Instruments and Ross Perot's big EDS company. I can basically do all my work in one city and still be home with my small children in the evening. And I came here and started networking and had a difficult time, to be totally transparent with you, kind of breaking in. I mean, I found everybody very nice, very kind, but nobody was like kind of, here, let me open this door, let me introduce you to that person, or would you like to collaborate? Or none of that was happening. I really felt kind of relegated to the sidelines. And so they were predominantly male oriented networking groups. And then I went to women's networking groups and found it equally unfulfilling, but for very different reasons. I felt like there was a lot of, people that were starting businesses more as a hobby, a supplement while their kids were, in school. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just that I was trying to look for the people that were, trying to build $1 million dream. I had something really big in mind. And the way I looked at it, if I was going to be away from my family, I wanted to really have something strong to show for it. And I couldn't find that there either. And that's really, honestly, Vince, was kind of the impetus for what is now EWomen Network.
One of the things that we share on the Miracle You is some of the things that have happened in our lives that really got our attention and got us to look at life a different way. One is to show up in the way that we truly are meant to show up here. Was there a wake-up call or a prompting in your life that moved you to that space?
Well, I mean, it depends on which one you want to talk about, to be honest with you. But I think the big thing was, I mean, the overarching thing is that, I was raised by a single mom. My real father died on my birthday in a car accident, killed instantly, tragically, when I turned 5 years old. My mother remarried many, many years later, and my stepfather actually passed away as well. And I, have done a lot of work on myself to know that, I've always been a little anxious about not being able to really take care of myself. And so I would say that is one of those, critical moments or incidences in my life, which has caused me to really think about, how do I do something meaningful in the world? And how, as I create meaning and value, then how is it that I can give back to the people that were underserved, like me, raised by a single mom for many, many years. My mother was not from this country. She's from Mexico, Lopez being her last name. English wasn't her first language. She could not get a driver's license for many years because she didn't know the English language well enough to be able to pass the driver's test, And, we were raised on welfare. I had a brother 13 months older than me that had a major heart condition. We never knew when he was going to sleep. So whenever Ricky would fall asleep, we'd have to be really super quiet because we'd want to wake him up. And so I certainly know and have lived the life. My mother darned socks. She was a seamstress. She did everything that she could in a little farm town to be able to, create some supplemental income to take care of us. And so having the foundation as a give back has been very important to me, and I think still one of the best of everything that I do.
It's amazing how the parents that we've chosen as we come into this world, how they give us everything that we need for the strength to move forward in who we are and how to share it. And then we get the task of developing our gifts and talents along the way to make that all happen. It's truly divine if you look at it that way. There are no mistakes or coincidences, like quantum physics tells us.
Right.
I am one of those men that's part of EWomen Network.
We're so blessed to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. And the thing that I want to share about it is it's not just a networking group. It's truly community, and community in a way that you can't find in a lot of places. And as every business is, it's a top-down thing. Community has to start at the top for EWomen Network to deliver community. Could I ask you to share what you feel? First of all, what's your definition of community? And then why is it so important?
Yeah. So, first of all, let me just say, I wish I could say that I knew when I started the EWomen Network that what I was doing was building community. Just wasn't quite astute enough to really understand that at the time. I just embarked about, wanting to create an environment of connectedness. That's really what it is to me, what community is. It's a connectedness that is beyond what you find in a group or an audience or any other configuration, right, of human beings. There is a culture, an understanding, a respect, and a support, an inherent support mechanism that we are here. There are 8 billion people on the planet. There's enough for everyone, that I help you because I can. It has nothing to do with quid pro quo or you scratch my back or I scratch yours or tit for tat. It's about I do it because I can and it is the right thing to do. And I trust that when I help you, when it is my time of need, and we all have those times of needs, that I will have put enough deposits in my community that when it's my time for need, it may not be you that can help me, but it might be somebody that you know or somebody who observed me helping you that will say, let's show up for her too. And I think that's what defines a community, a connectedness at a depth of we are here to support each other. And we want to all do big things in the world. And whatever that is for everybody, that's to be honorable and to be valued. And that we will do this in a place where we are non-judging and supportive. And I think it's a pretty special thing these days. And I wish I would have known that's what I was creating in the very beginning, but I'd be I wouldn't be honest with you if that was true. I did see it begin to evolve and started to go, something magical is happening here. What is that? What name do I give it? How do I manifest more of it? How do I help it thrive and grow? What food does it need to be nurtured and loved in order to, continue? And yeah.
One of the things as we work with people in some of the courses that we have, it's important, shall we say, ego wise. And when I say ego, I'm talking about those subpersonalities that are trying to protect us all the time. Sometimes it's helpful ego wise not to really realize what the end item is going to be or what you're really here to do. Because if somebody told you, well, you're not really starting a networking group, you're truly starting a community, you'd say, I can't start a community. How would I ever start a community?
Yeah, I don't even really know what that is. How can I do something I don't even know what is? No, Kim and I actually, to your point, Vince, Kim and I, my husband, who is the co-founder and president of EWomen Network, have talked about, just those early stages of being what we love to say now was ignorance on bliss. I mean, like we just didn't know what we didn't know. And you mentioned to this, and I'll take it a step further to say that honestly, if I had known in the beginning everything that I was going to go through, every challenge, right, that I was going to have, every obstacle that I was going to encounter, every hill that I was going to have to climb, every Band-Aid that I was going to have to buy for skid knees from falling, I probably would have passed if I'd known that. So there's something to be said for trusting, right, and not always knowing. And I've learned to communicate that very clearly. It's important, I think, when you've got a big dream to know what you want, right? But you don't have to know how. And I think it actually serves us better to not know how.
That's for sure. And then when you surround yourself with like-minded, but not just like-minded, like-hearted people
Yeah.
that are willing to pick you up when you're down and stay high when you're down, instead of
Yes.
coming down in the weeds with you and
Yeah.
and going through your misery. With those like-minded, like-hearted people truly support you in your higher vibrations, and in your higher vibrations, then you get to experience truly who you are are fully. And that's why community, I think, is so important, especially when you can surround yourself with those like-minded, like-hearted
Yeah.
people. Could you give some examples on where community has been instrumental in your life, your experiences in EWomen?
Well, without question, I always say that when you have a community, you don't have to worry about what is your next move to keep and grow your customers. So, I always say there's three levels of customers. The first level is great customer, because any customer is a great customer, right? But that second level is repeat customers, those customers that value what you have offered them thus far, and feel confident and trustful enough to want to make a new next move with you, right? And then there is the third level of customer, which is the raving fan. And those are the ones that, wave their flag and tell other people, about you, what you're doing, and encourage others to come along. It's that third party endorsement that I think is so important when people have so many choices today, to feel like they are making a decision in confidence and clarity. And I would say that for me, how community has been so important is that I really just don't venture outside of the EWomen Network community to think about what is the next product or service that I need to offer. I mean, they tell me, I just have to listen. I mean, I just did, as you know, a mastermind this past week. And it was amazing to me how many instances people said, you know what you should do, Sandra? You know what I would really love to be able to invest in next with you, Sandra? I mean, they just tell me, right? And then my job is to write it down, so I don't forget these days. and, and then the second thing is bring it to my executive growth team. And maybe it won't happen this year because we've got our 5 core goals really set for the year, and it may not fit in with those. But then that goes into, in October, we start planning for the next year. We begin to start to percolate. Okay, the year is almost over. It's going to be done in 90 days. What should be new and different? How do we, add continued value to our customer? And that's when it may pop up for next year's goals. But, I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there that really struggle with, what they offer, and they're offering things and people aren't buying. And it begs the question, did they want it to begin with, right? And one of the secrets, I think, to being uber super successful is to constantly keep your ear open and ask good questions, but most importantly, listen to what your customers are saying, because I think they tell you exactly what it is that they want and they need. And I stick right with the EWomen Network community to find that out. Everything I do, Vince, everything that we offer comes from within the community. Things that we've heard, things that we listen to, questions that people ask me, certainly tells us what it is that they're struggling with, what obstacle they're trying to overcome, what they're needing to break through, about. And so it's all right there.
Excellent example of how community can be there for you. And if we attract those people into our lives that are really, first of all, looking for us, but then also attracted to our energy as we're attracted to theirs, now we start opening up a door of a community that just helps itself grow. And in growing itself, the vibration of that community comes up, which means the vibration of the world comes up. So we're
That's
truly
right.
making a difference in the world. It's huge.
Yes, for sure.
What would you say if someone came up to you and said, Sandra, I really want to start a community. I want to surround myself with these like-minded, like-hearted people. How would you share with them to do that?
I think what's really important is that you get grounded in your values first, right? Because actually, I think that's the core of a community is, not just what we're about, but who and how we're going to be with each other as we embark on this shared vision. right? So, and I think that's what really gets in the way of most communities forming. They're not grounded in how we are going to be with each other, right? And so EWomen Network, I will say, is grounded in 9 core values. We take them very seriously in our organization, very seriously. We don't assume that everybody knows, nor do we assume that everyone remembers with everything they've got on their plate. So we always take pause to get really centered in this is what we're about, and how we are going to be is lifting others as we climb, teamwork to make the dream work. I mean, the list goes on, there's 9 of them. And so I think that's really essential for building a true community. Otherwise, you have people coming in with different agendas, and it shifts the energy for sure, and the vibration in the room. So that shared how we're going to be with each other, I think, is really essential. The next thing is you can't assume that it will stay for no reason. So you got to be clear on what is the value that we want to provide. When people come into the community, what can they expect, not just in terms of how we're going to be with each other, but how we elevate each other? How is it that we move up, individually and together, right? Lifting each other up, which I think is really essential and can never be taken for granted either. And then listening to each other, I think, is really important. So it's one thing for me to come from my perspective, my point of view, based on what I've heard, but you've always got to be open and reminding people that when you make a shift or a move, that it's because it is in their best interest, whether they have been reminded, you have been reminded by people in the community, or you're looking. I think one of the big misses that most entrepreneurs make is that they're not looking at the future, right? And that might I've considered that to be one of my responsibilities as the CEO of EWomen Network, to not only focus on what it is that people need now, but making sure I'm paying attention to what it is they're going to need down the road. And I'm preparing for that, because my mother used to always say, better to be prepared and there to be no opportunity than for there to be an opportunity and you not be prepared, right? So preparation is key, I think, as the leader of a community. And when all of those things are working, right, and you're celebrating together, you're there to lift each other up when you're having a tough time. I mean, we all have them. They can be personal, they can be business. But, I always say it's important to bring the Kleenex, maybe even a casserole when you're still curled up in a ball and can't get going. And then eventually it's a, kick in the bum saying, okay, we got you. And not but it's time to, start moving forward again. So power of pause is important. You just can't get stuck there.
And we've got you is so important.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga made a big hit in the recent awards when she told Liza that I got you. And
that's right.
It's important to feel that somebody's got you and they're there for you. One of the experiences that I've had in the networking world is you show up and everybody's really out for themselves. They're out to tell you who they are, what they've got, come buy my stuff, I'm important. And sometimes that when you're sharing, they may be listening to you, or they may be thinking, okay, who's the next person that I'm going to share with? That culture isn't, in my experience in EWomen Network. How did you, first of all, and I know the values are a big part of this, but how did you start the culture of it being a team, and I've got you, and a community? And then how do you make sure, with over 500,000 women in the community, how do you make sure that culture is upheld?
It's an interesting perspective that you've noticed. And I feel, just like my heart is smiling that has been your experience, because we started out very early on when I was launching EWomen Network 22 years ago. And people said, why you? Why a new network? How do you think you're going to get this thing off the ground? And I said, because there's a lot of people that don't understand that networking is not about getting, it's about giving. It's about, I think of relationships as like making deposits into relationships. And I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Like when you help people, the best time to get a network is when you don't need one. A lot of people only show up when they're in need for something, and it comes across like net begging. I think, you can just feel the energy shift in the room when somebody is in a high need for something. But when they only show up for that, it's easy to, to have cause for, just not having that connection, right? It's kind of like all of us probably have people that have called us on the phone that only call when they need something or they want something. Very easy for us to want to just, send that to voicemail and say, I will deal with that later. Kind of thing. So, the whole notion of from the very beginning, I said that networking, you come to give. Now, the interesting thing is when everybody's giving, there is this reciprocity kind of vortex that starts, moving, where all of a sudden everybody is receiving, right? So we very carefully created a trademarked process called accelerated networking. And as simple as it sounds, it was so important to me, it was worth making the investment, and I fought for it. It wasn't easily trademarked, by the way, because I was going up against a lot of technology company accelerated networking, all the technology companies that were trying to put networks, computer networks together and create the high speed. And I mean, I had to fight for it, and I ended up getting it. And I stand by it to this day. And when you come to an EWomen Network event, we facilitate that kind of philosophy. It's one thing to say it to people, and it's another thing to give them, a system by which to follow, which fosters it, right? And there are still some in a true transparency. Vince, there are some people that will say, "Hey, I've come twice. I haven't gotten anything yet." That's often for me, a real big disappointment. I wonder what we did wrong, because what they should have received was at least an indoctrination into building relationships in a different way. And we have such a history of the success of it, right? So I feel like, where did we go wrong that somebody would leave with that thinking? Plus, all of our events have a really seasoned, skilled presenter who shares, a speaker that shares some kind of knowledge, information, 20 minutes that you're supposed to be able to take action on, learn and take action on. It's hard to leave an event and not receive, right? But I do think that it's fair to say that you've got to find your home base. If not EWomen Network, let it be somewhere else. But find that one group that most resonates with you, and then make an investment to stick and stay and show up. I mean, it's kind of like a gym membership. It will never work if you don't show up, despite the fact that you paid for it, right? So you've got to show up. You've got to be engaged. But after 22 years, I mean, I'm here as it's proof positive that it works. I mean, I just met a woman who, not met her, I got reacquainted with a woman a couple of weeks ago at our Platinum Summit, who stood up to say, "Hey, listen, I just want everyone to know I've been a member for 17 years. We have another woman, Mary Boggs, who is still a member. She was one of our first 100 members ever. I mean, the staying power, right? Because of, the thought of starting over once you've built that kind of community sounds incredibly arduous,
For sure. One of the things that I would love for you to talk to is, because the groups are so tight, when new members come in, what's the values around and what's the culture around helping people feel part of the group as soon as they come in?
Well, we have a variety of different steps. So the first is how they walk in the door. So in most chapters, particularly when we do in-person events, and I'm so glad to see that that is growing. And as a company, we informed our managing directors just today that by June 1, we will be back to all in-person events, accelerated networking events, and we're going to continue to do things online, but we're going to make sure that we show up on that in-person because It's wonderful for you and I to be looking at each other right now. And I am very grateful to Zoom for this technology to have helped us in such a great way during the pandemic. And not a but, and there's nothing quite like that in person, right? Connection when we are sitting across from the table and we got elbows, leaning in, and we're really heart to heart, eye to eye, knee to knee, kind of thing. But we do everything from, having greeters, if you will, when someone is a guest, and we have them waiting at the registration table to literally greet and walk a guest in and introduce that guest to the managing director. The managing director, don't be surprised if she doesn't have a flip chart saying, "I was expecting you." And one of the other people that I noticed is here that I think would be a really great connection for you is, and then asking the greeter to go make that introduction and connection. The other thing that we do is we do a corporate how to maximize your membership. What should you expect now that you're a member? And that's not only the understanding how they can utilize their home chapter, but how can you tap into all of the other chapters now that we are online, right? Because you're not a member of a chapter, you have a home base. You're an international member. And that's something that we feel very few, if any. In fact, I don't know any, but I won't say there are none. But to my knowledge, there are no other international networking groups such as ourselves where you are an international member. Usually you have to join every single chapter. And you're part of our community. You're not just a sub-community, you're part of the community, right? So we don't have these extra hoops that you have to jump in order to get access, right? And then we have a very large digital presence that includes our international membership so that you can, network with anyone. I'll tell you, Vince, I mean, some of your best ideas, even if you're a local business, some of your best ideas come from outside your city and state, and I mean, honestly, I don't think I'd be here right now if I had totally relied on Dallas thinking. Every city, I always says, has a box. There are very Dallas ways of doing things. I live here in Dallas, and every city is like that. What I can tell you is there's something really powerful when somebody, locally might look at you and say, that's been tried before. That will never work. But they haven't actually done it your way. And yet you meet somebody in another state. And it could be just the next state. It doesn't even have to be across the country. And it could be in a completely different country that does what you do. And suddenly you're like talking and collaborating, and you're, being able to kind of flush out your ideas and kind of get your thinking really clear, and then come back and be the first to market to launch something very powerful. And I think local businesses often think that they should only spend time with local people. Far from it. I think sometimes you really got to get out of your backyard to come back and be first to market to launching something that is tried and true in another city. So you don't have to maybe adopt it. Maybe you adapt it. Maybe you change that O and adopt to an A. You make some tweaks that make it a little bit more customized for, your city, your state, your culture. But gosh, just the compression, right, of the learning curve and the expansion, of the rate of acceleration is huge, just huge.
I'm going to step out of community a little bit for a couple questions, because we're getting close to our end of a time, and of
Darn
course,
it.
I always went hours to have these
I know. Me too.
But what you just shared, Sandra, I think was very important. We have a tendency to believe that we have to do things our way.
Yeah.
And if it's not our way, then it's not authentic. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think that, how we define our way is where the greatest opportunity is, right? It's redefining, how we see things. Ultimately, customers purchase what is desirable for them. Sometimes they know it. Sometimes you have to help them see it, right? Sometimes they don't know what they don't know, and that's your job. That's a little bit harder to do. It often takes a little bit more time as well as money to be able to help people see what it is that you see that they need. But I think the big opportunity really is to make sure you're learning what people want. You're paying attention to what they want. You offer a product or service that delivers what they want and what it is that they need. That's when they go, right? And because people can only expect based on their uncomfortable zone, what it is they don't know that they need to know. But the real magic and breakthrough and opportunity for you to be just, their hero and shero is when you go past the uncomfortable zone and you go into the unknown zone, what it is that's in their blind spot that they don't know that they need to know. Sometimes we want to go there so quickly that we're perceived as being so out there that we don't really get grounded in the relationship with what your customer wants. And I think that's dangerous. I always like to focus on what they want and deliver what it is that they need. And so if you can be open to not only what you see and what is available to them, but also just kind of look around, I always say, just look for the averages, right? Look for what you're hearing people say over and over and over. What is the mean? What is the average across that? And go, okay, I know something that I think will appeal to the masses, maybe not be exactly what I want, but it is a good way for me to say, I hear you. I see you. I validate you. And I'm showing up for you in that way. And right. And I sometimes don't even market those things. I let that be the grand surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then sometimes that really is what defines, this amazing, customer experience, which I think is the new competitive battleground in business today, and also then becomes part of your brand, right? Those areas that you really shine, that you really kind of blew them away. If you do that over and over and over, that can very easily, be part of, how people define you in terms of your brand as, a really blow their mind kind of moment because it was unexpected.
One of the things I love about being in your audience, listening to you talk, is you always make each individual feel like you're talking right to them. And I'm sure through our experience in the interview today that many people have felt that. And because of your experience, because of your knowledge, because of your heart, I would love for you to share a parting piece of guidance with the imagination that you want to make sure that they take away from our time together.
Yeah. So imagination is, I think, one of the most important underutilized resources that we have. We are a species in many ways of indoctrination. We have been taught or indoctrinated to think in a certain way. How that gets in the way, it's not all bad, but how it gets in the way for entrepreneurialism is that we often think that things have to happen, so sequentially, so step by step by step. And I think we've been indoctrinated, to think that way. First there's one, then there's two, then there's three. First is A, then there's B, then there's C. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? But what I can tell you is the imagination is an equally accessible and powerful force that we have. And it is there. And for most of us, I imagine it. There's my bed. I imagine it being inside going, let me out, let me out. But we just kind of keep, shoving it down. And that's, I think, often why we are in such, why we're experiencing disease. It's the dis-ease, of not listening to this wonderful, resource that we have called our imagination. And what it wants to tell us, if we would listen to it, is that, in your head you dream, and a lot of people quit their dreams, as we know, but our heart has a calling. It's much bigger than a dream. And the reason why is because you can't quit a calling because it won't quit you. It's always there. And even when you try to stuff it, it pokes at you. It's the sleepless nights, right? It's the something's missing. It's all those kinds of things that we don't really give meaning to, but we know it's there. And I think that, one of the things that helps your calling grows is if you, water it with a healthy dose of imagination. If you allow yourself to begin to imagine what it could be, if you could really serve the world with your gifts, your talents, right? Imagine what it could be, the lives you would impact, right? And then how they would impact. Because when you give yourself permission to do something amazing, you give other people permission to actually do the same thing. If you could imagine that it doesn't have to be so hard, it doesn't have to be step by step. That serves certain parts of our lives. It doesn't have to apply to everything. And it certainly doesn't have to apply to your calling. That in fact, you have this resource that can give you this amazing drive and movement to accomplish things in a much more accelerated path. It's this ascension path that doesn't have these carved in steps, right? It really allows you to glide. But if you can't give it permission, right, it has a hard time showing up for you. So you have to show up for it. And the reciprocity is that it really does show up for you. And that's the power of tapping into and honoring your imagination.
Our imagination is a way through thought and feeling to create.
Yes.
I mean, that's truly how we create in this universe, with thought and feeling. And unfortunately, in the Western world especially, we've been taught to find out why things won't work instead of why they will work.
Right. It's like we've been taught that the opposite of success is failure, which is incredibly strange. What I've learned is that failure and success are actually on the same side. It's just that success is a little bit farther down. And those things you call failures are really just the universe saying, you've got a lesson here that you need to learn, because you're probably going to see it again, but the stakes will be much higher. And you want the benefit of wisdom to know what you might want to do differently, right?
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Exactly. What a great share. Thank you so much for that piece of guidance. And I know it can make a difference in each and every person who listens to this podcast live. Sandra, how can people learn more about EWomen Network and learn more about you?
It's pretty easy. We have a great website, EWomenNetwork.com. EWomenNetwork.com. And E is for everyone. E is for entrepreneurial. E is for exciting, enthralling, enticing individuals who want to own their own business and want to, leave a legacy, leave a mark on the planet, have something wonderful to give, and want to make sure that they get it out there so that, people can find you. It's EWomenNetwork.com.
All that information will be available on Sandra's show page. Just go to themiracleu.com. Look for Sandra's show page, and I'll make all that information available. Thank you so much for sharing yourself, sharing your calling, sharing your love, sharing your heart with the imagination and the world. Mary and I both appreciate what you're bringing to the world and the difference that you're making.
I appreciate the both of you so much as well. Thanks for having me, Vince, and maybe we'll do it again.
I think we just might do that. On behalf of Mary, my wife and business partner, the entire team here at Imagine Miracles, we want to wish each and every one of you a miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleu.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 Mind Awakening Steps Toward Your Unique Purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. all available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleyou.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.